Liam always believed that some friendships were unbreakable. Jake was that kind of friend, the boy who shared his first scraped knee, his first stolen beer, the one who stood beside him at his wedding, the one whose house shared the same fence. It wasn't just a neighbor. It was blood without DNA. Every Sunday, for years, they'd barbecue in the backyard. Jake would bring over a six-pack. Sarah would make that lemon pie everyone pretended to hate, but always finished. From the outside, their lives looked effortless. Warm lights, easy laughs, no cracks. But cracks don't start loud. They whisper. And one of them started the moment Jake began staying after Liam went to bed. It was small at first. Liam had early mornings. Jake would linger. A glass of wine with Sarah, talking on the porch. One night turned into 3, then more. Sarah would laugh differently around him. That sharp inhale, the one Liam hadn't heard in months. He noticed, but told himself not to care. It was Jake, his brother in everything but blood. Besides, Sarah was his wife. She'd never. One evening, Liam found them sitting too close on the patio swing. Sarah's hand moved just slightly away as he stepped outside. But that millisecond of contact, it burned into him. "Didn't know you were still up," Jake said casually, sipping wine. Sarah smiled tightly. "We were just talking about high school." Liam nodded, but something in the air had shifted. The warmth had a shadow. That night, in bed, Sarah turned away from him, and Liam lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying Jake's hand brushing hers, noticing for the first time how small trust really is, and how fast it can vanish. Liam didn't say anything for days, not because he wasn't thinking about it. He was. Every look, every laugh, every time Jake casually leaned in too close, or Sarah adjusted her shirt when Liam walked in. It was all there now, highlighted in painful clarity, like someone turned up the contrast on a photo he'd seen 1,000 times. He wanted to believe it was in his head, that he was being jealous, paranoid, insecure. But Liam wasn't the jealous type. Never had been. He was measured, patient, raised to believe that if you trusted someone, you trusted completely, not conditionally. But now, even the sound of Jake's voice outside their window at night made Liam's heart tighten. One Saturday, he came home early from a client meeting. He hadn't told Sarah. He wanted to surprise her with lunch. As he parked the car, he saw Jake's pickup already in the driveway. Odd. It was noon, and Jake usually showed up late afternoons. He stepped inside. No voices, no footsteps, only the faint sound of a Spotify playlist coming from the kitchen. A chill, moody playlist. He followed the sound, quietly, carefully, his footsteps silent on the hardwood. And then he saw it. Sarah and Jake. In the kitchen. She was leaning against the counter. He was in front of her. Too close. Jake's hand was on the granite beside her hip. Not touching her, but framing her. Sarah wasn't resisting. She was smiling. That soft, closed-lip smile she used to give Liam before they kissed. Liam didn't walk in. He backed away, stepped outside, sat in the car, and stared ahead. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just sat there, hollowed out. Later that night, Sarah asked why he was so quiet. He said he was tired. And in a way, it was true. Not tired from work or life, but from pretending not to see. Pretending not to notice how the woman he married was falling for the boy next door. And how that boy, his oldest friend, was standing closer to her heart than Liam had in months. Jake stopped coming by for a few days after that. Or maybe Liam just missed him. He wasn't watching the window anymore. He'd stopped timing Sarah's texts, stopped checking how many wine glasses were drying in the sink after he went to bed. But that didn't mean the thoughts weren't there. They were everywhere, in the smallest things. The smell of Jake's cologne still lingered on one of the porch cushions. A black hair on Liam's hoodie, Sarah's, not his. He hadn't worn that hoodie in weeks. And the biggest one, a small change in her laugh. It had become softer, quieter, like she was protecting something. One evening, Liam lit the grill and stood in the backyard, watching smoke curl up into the golden dusk. They used to host barbecues here, all three of them. Laughter echoing across the lawn, beers clinking. Sarah in that sundress with the open back. Jake telling some ridiculous story about their teenage years. Now the yard was empty. Sarah sat inside, scrolling through her phone with a glass of rose. Jake's house, lights off, blinds closed. Liam took a long sip of his drink and closed his eyes. He remembered the three of them when they were younger. Jake had been his best man. He gave a toast that made Sarah cry. "I always knew Liam will be the one to grow up first," Jake had said, and everyone laughed. But now Jake was still here, still boyish in that smug, charismatic way, and Liam suddenly felt older, smaller, outdated. That night, he finally asked the question, at least part of it. "Do you talk to Jake when I'm not around?" Sarah didn't flinch. "Sometimes. He lives next door." He nodded. "Do you tell him things you don't tell me?" She looked at him then, really looked, and in that moment, her eyes said everything her mouth didn't. She didn't answer, just stood, picked up her wine, and went to bed. Liam stayed outside, staring into the smoke, realizing that sometimes the real betrayal doesn't need to be physical. It's in the moments shared, the glances stolen, the conversations whispered behind your back while your heart stands defenseless. And still, he said nothing, because some men don't explode. They burn quietly, from the inside out. The next morning, Liam caught a glimpse of himself in the bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the man looking back. His eyes were tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Not red, not puffy, just hollow, like something inside him had caved in, quietly and completely. He ran his fingers through his hair and looked away. In the reflection, Sarah passed by the open door at her robe. She didn't look at him, didn't say good morning. She just moved like someone else, a woman who lived in the same house, but not the same life. Later that day, Liam took the long route to the office. He didn't want to arrive early. He didn't want to sit at his desk and stare at plans for other people's homes when his own was unraveling beneath his feet. Jake's truck wasn't in the driveway when he left, but Liam noticed the garbage bins were out, and Jake never remembered garbage day. That was always Liam's reminder. A small thing, but intimate. A ritual between neighbors. Now, Jake was remembering on his own, or someone else was reminding him. Liam tightened his grip on the steering wheel. At work, he couldn't focus. His colleague asked if he was okay. He lied, smiled, said he was just tired. But the truth was louder than ever now. He was unraveling, quietly, elegantly, like a well-constructed building losing its foundation one invisible crack at a time. That night, Sarah came home late, said she went out for coffee after work, claimed she bumped into an old friend from college. She didn't smell like coffee. She smelled like mint and warm skin, like someone had been too close to her for too long. Liam didn't ask. Instead, he watched her undress from the doorway. She didn't notice he was there, or pretended not to. She took her time, the kind of care a woman takes when she knows someone's been admiring her. Then she slipped under the covers and turned her back to him. And Liam stood there, still fully dressed, heart thudding in his chest like he'd just run a marathon. Because deep down he knew where she'd been, and who she'd been with. He just didn't know how to say it, or if he even wanted to hear her confirm it. Sunday morning brought sunlight and silence. Sarah made pancakes. She hadn't done that in months. The smell of butter and syrup drifted through the house like a memory from a better version of them. She didn't ask if Liam wanted any, just placed a plate on the counter, as if following some faded script from their early marriage. Liam sat across from her, chewing slowly. The pancakes tasted like guilt. She was scrolling through her phone while sipping orange juice, her hair tied in a loose bun, the same bun she wore on their second date. That tiny detail hit him like a punch. "Are you seeing him?" he asked suddenly. The fork in her hand froze midair. "What?" Her voice cracked, barely. "Jake." He didn't blink. "Are you sleeping with him?" She swallowed, hard, then laughed. But it was the kind of laugh people use to buy time, to rebuild a mask that's slipping. "You're being paranoid," she said. He leaned forward. "Am I?" Silence. Just the ticking of the wall clock. "I told you," she finally muttered, avoiding his eyes. "Sometimes we talk. He's lonely. So are you." She blinked, and he saw her jaw tighten, just slightly. That was the moment, the split second, when he knew she had. Not just emotionally, but physically. The betrayal had already happened, even if she never said it. You can't hide that kind of intimacy. It leaks through the way someone breathes, through how they blink when asked a direct question. She didn't deny it again. She just stood up, took her plate to the sink, turned the faucet on full blast, as if the sound of running water could drown out what was already said. That afternoon, Liam went to the garage. There, on a dusty shelf, sat a photo from their wedding day. Him, Sarah, and Jake, all smiling, all glowing. Jake had his arm draped around Liam's shoulder like a brother. Sarah held Liam's hand like it was the only anchor in the world. He stared at that photo for a long time, then flipped it over. On the back, Sarah had written in blue ink, "To forever, even when it's hard." Liam laughed bitterly, the kind of laugh that turns into coughing, the kind that tastes like metal. He didn't throw the photo away. He just slid it back into the drawer. Because some things you're not ready to destroy, even when they've already destroyed you. That evening, Liam sat outside on the patio. The sun had just dipped behind the rooftops, casting long orange streaks across the lawn. The same backyard where he and Jake used to play baseball as kids. Where Jake broke his collarbone sliding into a makeshift home plate, and Sarah brought out popsicles for both of them, laughing as she knelt beside them. That laugh haunted him now, not because it had changed, but because it hadn't. Sarah came outside, carrying 2 glasses of wine, like everything was normal. Like they were still a couple who sat under string lights and talked about their week. She handed him one without meeting his eyes. Liam took it, feeling the chill of the glass press against his skin. "You remember the night we moved in?" he asked, watching the lights blink above them. She nodded slowly. "Of course. You said this house would be our reset button." "I meant it," she whispered. Liam turned his head toward her, sharply. "So what happened?" She inhaled through her nose, then looked away. "I don't know. You got busy. I got lost." "Lost where?" His voice cracked. "In Jake." She flinched. There it was. The name again. And this time, it hit like a slap instead of question. "I didn't mean to," she said finally. "I didn't plan it." "That's the worst part," he replied, eyes glassy. "It just happened, right? Like love isn't a choice. Like loyalty's some switch you can't control." "I felt invisible," she said louder now. "Do you know what that's like? To walk around a house where your husband looks at his phone more than your face." Liam stared at her, stunned. He wasn't ready for that truth. The one that came back at him, like a boomerang of blame. "So you let my best friend notice you instead?" he asked, quieter. "The boy I grew up with. The guy who slept on my couch after his divorce." Sarah's eyes welled, but she didn't deny it. Didn't try to explain anymore. There was a silence so thick it felt like fog. And in it, 1,000 things were said between the lines. Finally, she whispered, "Do you hate me?" "No," Liam answered without thinking. "But I think I stopped knowing who you are." And with that, he stood up and walked inside, leaving her alone under the soft humming of patio lights. That night, he dreamed of the house burning. Not violently, just slowly, room by room, as if it didn't want to alarm anyone, only erase what was once beautiful. He woke up with sweat on his neck and tears he didn't remember crying. And beside him, Sarah slept soundly, too soundly, as if guilt had already been repackaged into something quieter, detachment. Days passed. Liam started counting them like someone on a prison wall, not with marks, but with memories. Monday, the day Sarah didn't kiss him goodbye. Tuesday, Jake's truck was parked crooked across both driveways. Wednesday, silence during dinner, so sharp it could cut the meat untouched on their plates. And Thursday, that was the day Liam found the sock. It was on the laundry room floor. A plain white ankle sock. Not his, too small. Not Sarah's, too worn. But familiar. Jake always wore those, a specific kind, with a faded blue stripe along the heel. The kind he bought in bulk from some store Liam had driven him to after Jake's breakup, because Jake didn't trust himself to be alone. Liam held the sock like it was evidence in a crime scene. And maybe in a way it was. He didn't confront her that night. He didn't rage or scream. He folded the sock, placed it in his drawer, next to the wedding photo. 2 pieces of a broken puzzle he couldn't bring himself to finish. That weekend, Sarah suggested they go to dinner. Somewhere nice, she said. Like old times. It was the first time she tried. The first time she looked him in the eyes without that distant glaze, like she wanted something again. Or at least wanted to pretend. Liam agreed. They went to a restaurant by the lake. Candlelight flickered against her face as she smiled over a glass of white wine. She reached for his hand, but the warmth felt artificial. Not because she wasn't beautiful, but because he couldn't unsee what she'd hidden. Midway through dessert, Sarah's phone buzzed on the table. She grabbed it quickly, turned it face down. Liam didn't say a word, but something broke in his chest, clean and quiet, like ice cracking beneath a heavy step. When they got home, she kissed him softly. Her lips lingered. It felt almost like before. He wanted to believe it. God, he wanted to. But belief is fragile. And that sock, now a relic of betrayal, still sat in his drawer, whispering every time he opened it. That night, while Sarah slept beside him, Liam crept downstairs. He opened Jake's Instagram. Private, but one post visible in the tiny preview bar, a blurry photo, a glass of wine, a hint of the lakefront railing. Timestamp tonight. The same restaurant. Same time. He zoomed in. There, on the other side of the table, barely visible, a woman's hand. A familiar ring on her finger. Liam closed the app, and for the first time, he felt something new. Not heartbreak. Not betrayal. Clarity. Because now it wasn't suspicion. It was truth. Quiet. Precise. Undeniable. And the worst part, he wasn't even surprised anymore. The next morning, Liam sat at the kitchen island staring at his cold coffee. The same table where he and Jake had shared beers after backyard barbecues. The same table where Sarah had once whispered, "We should start trying for a baby," with a nervous smile and hope in her eyes. Now all of it felt staged, like a memory from a film you once loved, but now can't bear to watch. Sarah walked in wearing his old college sweatshirt, the one he hadn't seen her wear in over a year. She smiled. It was a soft, careful smile, the kind you give a wounded animal so it doesn't bolt. "I thought maybe we could go hiking later," she said lightly. "Clear our heads." Liam didn't answer right away. He just stared at the steamless cup, then finally looked up. "Did you enjoy the wine?" Her smile faltered. "What? Last night. At dinner. It was good wine, wasn't it?" She blinked. "Yeah, I guess." Liam nodded. Jake liked it too. Silence dropped like a brick between them. She froze, lips parting, not in shock, but in the aching stillness of someone who knows she's been seen. Fully. Liam slid his phone across the counter. The Instagram post was open. Her ring was unmistakable in the corner. "I wasn't trying to catch you," he said quietly, "but I think I needed to stop pretending I hadn't already caught you." Sarah's hands shook as she picked up the phone. Then she put it down slowly. "Liam, it wasn't supposed to happen like this," she whispered. He laughed, soft, bitter. "How was it supposed to happen?" She looked away. "I don't know. It started with long talks after you'd fall asleep. He was hurting. I was lonely. And then, one night, he touched my hand and I didn't pull away." Liam stood. "And after that," she looked at him, and for once, didn't try to lie. "After that, I kept going back." They sat in the stillness of that morning, surrounded by the ghosts of 1,000 casual moments. Eggs on Sunday, shared playlists, grocery lists on the fridge. It all collapsed in that one quiet confession. "I need to go," Liam said finally, his voice calm but frayed. "I need space." Sarah didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just nodded, like someone who'd already rehearsed this ending in her mind too many times to fall apart now. As he packed a small overnight bag, Liam noticed something. The sock, still there, folded neatly, a symbol of everything she didn't hide well enough. He didn't take it. He left it exactly where it was, in the drawer beside their wedding photo, as if to say, "I saw you. I knew. And I walked anyway." Liam didn't drive far. He ended up at an old roadside motel 20 minutes out of town, the kind with peeling blue doors and neon that buzzed through the night. Room 14 smelled like bleach and lost hope, but it was quiet. It was his. He lay on the bed without unpacking, stared at the ceiling like it could give him answers. His mind spun in loops, not just about Sarah and Jake, but about himself, about how many things he'd ignored. The late nights, the subtle withdrawal, the way she never reached for his hand anymore unless someone was watching. How long had he been sleepwalking through his own life? By 2 a.m., he sat in the parking lot chain-smoking cigarettes he hadn't touched since college, watching moths attack the flickering light overhead. Every inhale felt like reclaiming a part of the man he was before marriage, before routine, before betrayal. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Can we talk?" Liam stared at the screen for a full minute. Then he typed, "Too late. You already said enough," and hit send. The next day, he didn't go home. He went to the lake. The lake where he and Jake once built a raft from plywood and rope as kids, believing they could sail away from everything. The lake where he first kissed Sarah on a rainy afternoon, her umbrella flipping in the wind as they laughed like nothing else mattered. Now it all felt like fragments, like someone else's life he'd borrowed and broken. He sat on the dock for hours. The breeze was soft. The world looked calm. But inside, something was shifting, not exploding, not screaming, just rearranging. And that was almost more terrifying. Because grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, a steady drip that hollows you out drop by drop. At sunset, his phone buzzed again. This time a voicemail. Sarah's voice, small and trembling. I understand why you left. I understand if you never come back. I don't expect forgiveness. I want you to know it wasn't just lust. It was something I thought I needed. But now I know I never did. I only needed us. And I let it rot. She paused, as if holding her breath. I miss the way you used to look at me when I wasn't even doing anything special. Just folding laundry or reading. That gaze, that quiet love. I see now how rare it was. And I hate myself for throwing it away. Click. Liam didn't delete it, didn't respond, but he played it again and again. Not because he wanted to forgive her, but because he wanted to understand how she had stopped seeing him like that, and how he'd stopped seeing himself. The wind picked up, and for the first time in weeks, Liam didn't feel shattered. He felt empty, and somehow, that felt like progress. 2 days later, Liam returned home, but only to collect more clothes. He didn't announce it. He didn't call. He wanted to enter like a ghost. The house felt different in his absence. Colder, stiller. Not because it had changed, but because he had. He stepped inside quietly. The living room smelled faintly like lavender and regret. Sarah wasn't there. Maybe at work. Maybe avoiding being home during the hours when memories screamed the loudest. He walked through the hallway slowly, each footstep echoing more than it should have. On the wall hung pictures. Birthdays, holidays. That blurry shot from their honeymoon, where Sarah's hair whipped across her face, and she laughed like a wild flame. He used to love that photo. Now it burned. When he entered the bedroom, everything was in its place, almost too perfectly. The bed was made military tight. A candle flickered on the dresser. A note sat on the nightstand. I'm not here because I thought you might want space. I've left the guest key. Take what you need. I won't contact you again unless you do first. S. Liam folded the note in half. Then again, then again. It became a tiny square that he shoved into his pocket without thinking. He opened the drawer. There it was. The sock. Still folded. Still waiting. Like some kind of sick monument. He ignored it this time. Instead, he opened another drawer, looking for clean shirts. And that's when he saw it. A velvet box. He paused. Opened it. Inside was his wedding ring. The one he had stopped wearing after the night at the lake. Sarah must have found it in the bathroom and placed it here like a dare or a peace offering or both. He picked it up. Cold. Heavier than it should have been. He slipped it on. Just for a second. The weight was unbearable. He took it off again and placed it on the dresser, exactly in the center. A statement. Downstairs, he poured himself a glass of water. And that's when he heard the door open. Footsteps. Hesitant. Then her voice. Liam. He turned. There she was. No makeup. Hoodie. Damp hair pulled into a messy knot. She looked exhausted. And human. And small. I didn't know you'd be here, she said quietly. I figured, he replied. I won't be long. But neither of them moved. The kitchen clock ticked louder than it should have. Outside, a bird chirped, oblivious to the tension that made the air too thick to breathe. I went to Jake's house yesterday, Sarah said suddenly. Her voice cracked at the edges. To tell him it's over. For good. I should have done it weeks ago. Liam looked at her. Did he fight back, he asked. She shook her head. No. He just looked, relieved. I think we both knew it wasn't love. Just escape. Liam leaned against the counter. Do you think that makes it better? He asked. Sarah didn't answer. And for the first time, he saw her not as a villain, or even a wife, but as a person who had made a catastrophic mistake trying to feel whole again. A person who, somewhere along the way, had gotten lost in a life that looked good from the outside, but felt hollow inside. Maybe in a twisted way. So had he. Still, pain has memory, and some scars stay tender forever. I'll be staying with my brother for now, Liam said. Tell Jake not to come around. If he does, I'll make sure he regrets it. I already did, she said. He won't. He nodded once. Grabbed his bag. As he walked past her, she reached out, not to stop him, but to brush her fingers gently against his arm. A silent please. He didn't pull away, but he didn't stay either. He just walked out, not looking back, the ring still lying cold on the dresser behind him. And in that moment, the weight of everything they'd built and broken followed him into the dusk like a shadow that wouldn't let go. The first morning at his brother's place felt unreal. The walls were too bright. The silence too unfamiliar. The couch too soft. His brother Ethan, 4 years younger, single, still living like a bachelor, tried to act like nothing was wrong. He didn't ask questions. Just gave Liam a spare key and a cold beer and said, "You stay as long as you need." But silence, even well-meaning, eventually starts to scream. Liam couldn't sleep that night. He lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning too fast. His mind kept replaying one image over and over. Sarah brushing his arm. That tiny gesture, the kind you'd miss if you blinked. But in that moment, it held 1,000 unsaid words. Regret, shame, longing, maybe even love. And it terrified him more than the betrayal ever had. Because what if he still loved her? What kind of man still loves someone who tore him open? He tried to keep busy the next day. He helped Ethan patch the fence, went for a run, bought groceries he didn't need. But by evening, the ache returned, that dull, restless grief that sat right under the ribcage. He opened his phone. No new messages. He tapped Sarah's name, hovered his thumb over it for too long, then locked the screen and tossed the phone onto the table. Then came the knock. Ethan opened the door, and there she was, Sarah, in jeans and a loose sweater, hair down, face bare. No dramatics, no storm, just her. "I'm not here to argue," she said before either of them could speak. I need 10 minutes. Ethan looked at Liam, silently asking. Liam nodded. She stepped in, hugged herself with her arms like a child who wasn't sure if they were welcome. Liam watched her, part of him numb, part of him burning. "I saw your ring on the dresser," she began. "I stared at it for 20 minutes. He didn't answer. "I realized something," she continued, voice unsteady. "All this time, I thought I'd been unhappy because we'd lost the spark. But it wasn't that. It was me. I stopped being honest with myself and with you." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she held them back. "Jake wasn't the answer to anything," she said. "He was just a distraction I used to avoid the real work. I was scared to tell you I didn't feel seen anymore. Scared to ask if you still felt seen. And instead of talking, I chose destruction." Liam looked down. "Words are easy now," he muttered. "You should have said all this before everything was on fire." "I know," she whispered. "But I had to stand in the ashes to understand what I burned." Silence. Then she pulled something from her coat pocket. A photo. Folded. Faded. It was from their first apartment. Liam asleep on the couch. Sarah curled next to him, her head on his chest, a dog-eared book in her lap. They looked so young, so unaware. "I carry this in my wallet," she said. "Even now." Liam took it, held it between his fingers. The paper was soft, worn from years of folding. "I didn't come here to win you back," Sarah said finally. "I came to say I'm sorry. Not for what I lost, but for how I broke you in the process." She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, Liam spoke. "Did he mean anything to you?" She paused. "No," she said. "Not the way you did. Not even close." The door closed behind her, and for the first time in days, Liam sat there holding that photo and cried. Quietly, fiercely, not just for her or for what they were, but for himself, for the man he used to be, and the one he might still become. The following week blurred into slow-moving days and long, echoing nights. Liam functioned, barely. He responded to work emails, ate toast, jogged around the neighborhood until his legs gave out. Ethan gave him space, only checking in with a nod or a fresh cup of coffee. But silence started feeling too sharp again. So Liam went back to the lake. Same bench, same view, but something was different now. Inside him, like the wound had clotted, but the skin was too tight, itchy, unfamiliar. He pulled the photo from his wallet. Sarah had given it back that night, quietly, like a torch being passed in reverse. He studied it again. They'd been them in that picture. Not broken versions, not actors, just two people wrapped around each other in silence. Safe. He asked himself the question that had haunted him since her visit. Could love exist after betrayal? The romantic in him wanted to believe yes, that healing was possible, that people grow and rebuild and choose each other again, not because it's easy, but because it's earned. But another part of him, the part that woke up screaming at 3 a.m., wanted to scream back. Love, once broken, doesn't return the same. It limps. It stutters. Sometimes, it never comes back at all. And maybe that was okay. Maybe the point wasn't to forgive her, Maybe it was to forgive himself for still feeling everything. That night, he dreamed, not of Sarah, but of Jake. They were kids again, 10, maybe 11, racing their bikes downhill toward the lake, laughing so hard Liam's cheeks hurt. Jake was always faster, always fearless, always first. In the dream, Liam reached the dock, and Jake turned to him with a wide grin. "Come on," he said. "It's safe." Then the wood gave way, and Jake sank beneath the water like a stone. Liam screamed, but never moved. He just watched his oldest friend disappear. He woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The next morning, Liam did something reckless. He drove to Jake's house, not to fight, not to threaten, to look him in the eye, to see the truth for himself. Jake opened the door wearing a hoodie and sweatpants, looking about 10 years older than he did last month. His face was gray with guilt, his shoulders hunched like someone expecting to be hit. Liam didn't speak right away. Jake tried. Liam held up a hand. "No lies. Not today." They stood in silence, a decade of friendship curdling between them. Finally, Jake broke. "I don't know what happened, Liam. One day we were all just laughing. Then she looked at me differently. And I looked back. I didn't plan it. I didn't even want it. It just happened. And I let it." "You let it," Liam repeated. The words felt like iron. "I was jealous of you," Jake admitted, eyes watering. "You had the life, the house, the woman who looked at you like you hung the moon. I was the guy who peaked in high school. You were still growing." Liam didn't respond. He just studied him. Jake finally said, "I know I lost you. I know it's too late, but I'd take it back if I could. Every second." Liam took a slow step forward. "You didn't just lose me," he said quietly. "You lost you too. You used to be someone I'd trust with my life. And now, you're just a man I used to know." He turned and walked back to his car. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Some doors don't close with a slam. They rot off the hinges, until there's nothing left but splinters. Liam didn't go back to Ethan's right away. He drove aimlessly, past the old school, past the diner where Sarah used to wait tables in college, past the hardware store where he and Jake once spent hours picking out the wrong kind of paint, just to repaint a shed they'd built with more pride than skill. Every street held a memory, and every memory held them. At a red light, Liam looked at himself in the rearview mirror. His eyes were older, not tired, altered. Grief, betrayal, forgiveness, none of them lived in clean boxes. They bled into each other. Some days he felt like a man rebuilding. Other days, like someone surviving a shipwreck with no shore in sight. But for the first time in weeks, he wasn't afraid of the drift. That night, Sarah called. He didn't pick up. She didn't leave a voicemail. The silence between them had grown roots. Not just absence, but weight. It said more than words could. Still, he couldn't help but imagine what she wanted to say, what he might say back. So he played the conversation out in his mind, a cruel trick the heart plays when it's caught between goodbye and maybe. 2 days later, she showed up. Again. This time, Liam wasn't surprised. He was sitting on the porch with a mug of coffee gone cold, staring into the dusk like it owed him something. She approached slowly. "Hey," she said. He nodded. They sat in silence. Finally, she spoke. "I saw Jake yesterday. He told me you came." Liam nodded again. "He looked broken," she added. "So do you," Liam said, not unkindly. Sarah swallowed hard. "I keep thinking about the last time we were happy. Not just pretending. Actually happy." "When was it?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "The night we painted the bedroom. We got paint everywhere. On the dog. On each other. We ended up sleeping on the floor, laughing until we passed out." He remembered that night too. The smell of fresh paint. The taste of her skin under flecks of white and blue. The sound of her laugh vibrating in his collarbone. "Why do we stop fighting for that version of us?" she asked, almost a whisper. Liam looked at her then. Really looked. She wasn't the same woman. He wasn't the same man. And maybe that version of them only lived in memories now. "I don't know," he said truthfully. Sarah reached in her bag and pulled out something small. A key. "This is for the lake house," she said, setting it on the step between them. "You always said it was where you felt most like yourself. I thought maybe you should have that again, whether I'm in the picture or not." He stared at the key, a small, jagged thing, but it unlocked something much bigger than a door. "It's still in both our names," he murmured. "Not after next week," she replied gently. "I'm signing it over to you." His chest tightened, not out of anger, not out of relief, but because endings don't always look like slamming doors. Sometimes they look like open ones. Later that night, he sat on the porch again, alone. The key rested in his palm. He thought about who he was before everything cracked, about what he wanted to build next. Maybe not with Sarah, but maybe because of her, because of what they broke, because of what he survived. And under the stars, with a wind that carried pieces of old laughter, Liam whispered to the dark, "Maybe this is where I begin again." Liam drove to the lake house the next morning. It had rained the night before. The gravel road was still damp, the air thick with pine, and something sweeter, like wet leaves and endings. He parked, stepped out, and stood in front of the door for longer than he cared to admit. Then he unlocked it. The door creaked the same way it always had. The wood floors still groaned under his steps like they were whispering secrets to his soles. Dust covered everything. The furniture, the shelves, the little wooden duck Sarah once bought at a roadside flea market. He didn't cry. Not this time. He just breathed. This house held echoes. Of simpler days. Of summer nights and quiet mornings. Of the first, "I love you," said between burnt pancakes and clumsy kisses. Liam walked through the house, touching walls like he was reading Braille. In the bedroom, he found her old cardigan still hanging on the back of the door. Gray. Soft. It still smelled faintly of vanilla and cedar. He pressed it to his face, and for the first time since that night, he whispered her name. Not in anger, not in grief, just in memory. The next few days, Liam stayed at the lake house. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't answer texts. He just existed. He woke up with the sun, made coffee in silence, took long walks by the water, skimmed stones, cooked simple meals, and he thought, not about Sarah, not directly, but about himself, who he had been, who he had let himself become. Because it wasn't just her betrayal that hurt. It was how easily he'd stopped paying attention to the small cracks, the unspoken needs, the quiet cries for help he mistook for noise. He wasn't to blame for her actions, but maybe he had to own his absence. The absence of listening, of presence, of asking instead of assuming. That was the kind of honesty no one prepared you for. On the fifth night, he had a visitor. Not Sarah, not Jake. It was Ethan. He knocked once and let himself in with the spare key like he used to when they were kids, sneaking into the lake house to steal beers. "You disappear now," Ethan said with a crooked smile, holding up 2 bottles. "Figured you could use a drink." They sat on the porch. 2 brothers, grown men, sharing silence like old blankets. After a long sip, Ethan looked out at the lake. "You thinking of going back?" he asked. Liam shrugged. To her, Liam hesitated. "No," he said. I'm going forward, wherever that leads." Ethan nodded like he understood more than he let on. Then he said, "You know what Mom used to say about this place?" "What?" "Only the broken came here. And the ones who left it, they didn't leave broken anymore." They clinked bottles. The stars above blinked quietly. And Liam felt, truly felt, something he hadn't in weeks. Hope. Not loud, not cinematic, just small and steady. The kind that doesn't demand a promise. Just a first step. Liam woke up before sunrise. The lake was still, a sheet of glass tinted with soft indigo. Birds hadn't yet begun their chorus, and even the trees seemed to hold their breath. He stepped out barefoot onto the cold wood of the dock. No coffee, no phone, just him, just this. And for the first time, he didn't think about what Sarah was doing. He didn't replay that night. Didn't hear Jake's voice in his head. Didn't ache to rewrite the past. Instead, he felt the bite of morning air on his skin, the grain of old wood under his feet, the stillness of healing. Not loud, not proud, but honest. Back in the house, he made eggs. Badly. Burnt the edges. Scrambled them too dry. He laughed. It felt bizarre. Awkward. Like his mouth forgot the shape of joy. But it was there. A flicker. Later, he grabbed an old journal from the bookshelf. It hadn't been touched in years. The leather was cracked. The pages yellowed slightly at the edges. Inside, memories, plans, sketches of the garden he and Sarah had once dreamed of planting. And then, toward the back, something he didn't remember writing. A list, titled, "What I'd Be Without Her." He read the items aloud. Lonely, unmoored, lost, empty, and at the very bottom, in different ink, free. His hand hovered over that word for a long time. Free. He had written that before the betrayal, before anything crumbled. That truth had already existed. He just hadn't let himself see it. That afternoon, Ethan left. He patted Liam on the back and said, "You're going to be okay. You already are." Then it was quiet again. But it wasn't the kind of quiet that gnawed at him. It was peaceful. Liam sat in a hammock with an old novel and read until dusk bled into night. He didn't check his phone. Didn't wonder if Sarah would call again. Didn't need to, because he finally realized something vital. Closure doesn't come in the form of apology. It doesn't arrive dressed in forgiveness or wrapped in second chances. It comes the morning after you stop waiting, when you breathe in and know that nothing she says, nothing he explains, can rewrite what was done, and more importantly, can't define who you'll become next. That night, he stood at the edge of the dock again, shirtless, barefoot. Then, with no warning, he dove into the cold water. Sharp, shocking, electric. He came up gasping, laughing, crying all at once. Baptized in something bigger than pain. Not reborn, just real. 3 weeks passed. The lake house grew quieter, but Liam didn't. Something inside him had begun to speak again, slowly, carefully, like an old radio, tuning back into a frequency it thought was lost. He wrote, not for anyone, not for Sarah, just for himself. Pages filled with thoughts that once had no room between anger and numbness. Little moments, questions, even jokes, dark ones, mostly but real. Then one morning, he opened his inbox. One unread email. From Sarah. He stared at it for a long time before clicking. Subject: I know I shouldn't. Liam, I understand if you never want to read this, but I had to try. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. What I did with Jake, it was selfish, ugly, weak. I've spent every day since trying to understand what broke in me, what let me cross that line. But the truth is, part of me wanted to destroy what we had. Not because I didn't love you, but because I didn't know how to live in what we'd built anymore. That doesn't justify anything. I just needed you to know it wasn't your fault. You were good. You were good to me. And I failed you. If I could go back, I would beg myself to stop. Not just from cheating, but from slowly fading on you. I'm sorry. I really am. Sarah. Liam exhaled slowly. There was nothing dramatic in the letter. No new revelation. No twist. Just honesty. Late. Incomplete. But honest. He didn't cry. He didn't respond. He printed it. Folded it. Slipped it into the journal between the page where he'd written free and the list of who he thought he'd be without her. Then, he closed the book. That night, he went into town. He hadn't been back in weeks. The bar was mostly empty. A quiet Tuesday. He sat at the far end and ordered a whiskey. That's when he saw her. Not Sarah. A stranger. She smiled at him from across the bar. Not flirtatious, just kind. He nodded politely and looked away. But something shifted in his chest. A tiny flicker of openness. Not desire. Possibility. Driving back, he thought of Sarah one last time. Not as the woman who broke him, but as someone who once mattered. And Jake. He didn't deserve more thought. Because Jake had chosen the cheap version of loyalty. The one that only lasts when it's easy. Liam didn't need that anymore. He didn't need them. He had the lake. He had the silence. He had the cold water and the smell of pine. He had himself. And for the first time since it all fell apart, that was enough. Autumn arrived quietly. Golden leaves scattered the lake house porch, and the mornings came colder, slower, wrapped in fog. Liam stood at the edge of the dock one morning, holding a mug of black coffee that had long gone cold. His breath came out in soft clouds. He was leaving, not running, leaving. There's a difference. He had stayed long enough to hear what the silence needed to say, long enough to sit with the ache, the anger, the slow unwinding of the life he thought was forever. And now, the stillness didn't hurt anymore. It felt earned. That morning, he began packing. There wasn't much to take. Just clothes, a few notebooks, the journal. The photo, the one from a wedding with Sarah and Jake, he held in his hands one last time. And this time, he didn't put it back in the drawer. He slid it into the fire. The flames took it without hesitation. First the edges curled, then Sarah's face dissolved into ash. Jake's grin darkened. Liam's own smile twisted and disappeared. It was oddly peaceful, not spiteful, not cruel, just necessary. Because some things weren't meant to be kept. Some ghosts deserved to burn. On his last night at the lake house, Ethan returned. They sat on the porch again, both bundled in hoodies, sipping beer as the stars blinked quietly overhead. You sure about this? Ethan asked. Liam nodded. Yeah, I don't know what's next. But it's not here. Ethan tilted his head. You ever gonna talk to her again? I don't think she's part of my story anymore, Liam said softly. She's a chapter, not the whole book. Ethan grinned. Look at you, getting all poetic. Liam chuckled. Pain makes poets of all of us. They sat in silence after that. Comfortable. Final. The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be filled. The next morning, Liam loaded the last bag into his car. He looked back once, just once at the house. It no longer looked like a memory. It looked like a place he'd healed. He drove away slowly. No music, no GPS, just instinct. He didn't know exactly where he was going. But for the first time in a long time, he wasn't chasing answers. He was chasing life. Messy, quiet, beautiful life. And behind him, the lake reflected the rising sun. Still, unbroken. It's been a year now. Liam doesn't live by the lake anymore. He moved to a small city 2 hours away, near a quiet bookstore and a park with golden retrievers running off-leash. He works remotely, writes when he feels like it, and takes long walks alone. Sometimes he passes couples on benches, laughing the way he and Sarah used to. And it doesn't hurt. It pulls, maybe like a distant echo, but it doesn't break him. That's the gift time gives you. Not forgetting, just softening. One afternoon, while standing in line for coffee, a woman in her late 30s with paint on her jeans smiled at him. Hey, she said, you dropped this. It was a note, scribbled grocery list. Not his, not important, but it started a conversation. Then coffee, then a walk through an art gallery. No pressure, no expectations, no rush. Her name was Claire. She was nothing like Sarah, and he didn't want her to be. Liam doesn't talk about the betrayal anymore. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it no longer owns him. What Sarah and Jake did wasn't just a wound. It was a mirror, one that forced him to look at himself, to rebuild from rubble, to see what survived. And what did? Everything that mattered. His sense of humor, his integrity, his curiosity, his softness, and in time, even his ability to trust again. Some nights, he still dreams of the lake, but now it's peaceful. No voices, no shouting, just the water and wind and light. He sees himself there, older, calmer, sipping coffee, not waiting for anyone, not aching for the past, just being. That's the future he's building now. Not perfect, but real. And if you're watching this, if you've ever had your heart shattered, your world turned upside down, let this be proof. You don't stay broken forever. You just learn how to carry the cracks until they stop cutting you. Thank you for watching. If you want more raw, untold stories like this one, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. And if you're ready, click the next video on the screen. It might just be the one you need.